Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've been gone for a long time because I had a very busy summer and I also had to move. But I'm back, and today I'm going to be rounding up my spring-summer knitting plans, how they went, if I did do the projects I was planning to do, and I'm also going to talk about some of the things I'm planning to do for the next 3 months, so for the autumn-winter season. So, let's go back to what I was planning to do. So 6 months ago, I posted this video called My Knitting Plans for Spring and Summer 2024. And there were a few projects in there that I mentioned. And I have to say, this summer has been unexpectedly busy. Well, I should have known about it because I knew what was going to happen. But I think I was I was overestimating the amount of time I would have for knitting. So in that video, I mentioned a few projects and I'm going to talk about what happened to them, and I'm going to talk about what I actually did over the summer. So the first project that I mentioned in my plans was the Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit, which I was planning to knit with Camero's Midnight Sole that I got as a present from some friends. Now, the Cumulus blouse was going to be a perfect kind of spring to summer garment, and honestly would have also been a perfect kind of transitional autumn weather garment as well. Unfortunately, I think when I was knitting up the Midnight Sole, it was unexpectedly slower to knit with, and therefore I did start this project, but I never got around to finishing it by the time the weather got quite warm in the summer. And so since then, I haven't picked it back up. I should also preface this video by saying that because I've temporarily got stuff in storage, I don't have all my knitting supplies with me. So I selected a few projects that I brought with me here that I'll mention later. That means that basically I'm not knitting on anything else other than the projects that I've brought. So anything that I haven't finished over the summer that I mentioned here is just not going to get done until I'm back in December, basically. So yeah, the Cumulus blouse, I was really looking forward to it, and I'm quite sad that I didn't get around to finishing that blouse, especially because I got that yarn in January. So I feel like a little bit bad for my friend who got me the yarn. So hopefully when I'm back with my knitting stuff, when it's out of storage, I can get back to it in like an early 2026 project. Another project I mentioned in my spring and summer 2024 plans is the Poppy Tea by Petite Knit, and I was saying in that video that I was planning to make it double-stranded with Sandnes Garn Sunday. I ended up giving up on that idea because I think I gave up on the idea of making a poppy tee, especially in that thickness, because I don't think I would actually wear a knitted t-shirt. I would rather make a light jumper out of it instead. So what I did end up knitting with that yarn, the Sandnes Garn Sunday in the Above the Clouds color, was the mixed rib camisole. That was a bit unplanned. That's because by the time I did the spring-summer plan, I didn't know that there was going to be that pattern out. And I applied for the test knit and I got it after that video. And I'm really happy with this project because it was a perfect summer garment. I haven't worn it as much as I thought I would, but it's really pretty. And it's definitely something that's going to stay in my wardrobe. And it's a really good staple. I've seen tons of people knitting the mixed rib cami by Florence ever since the pattern got released. It's definitely a very popular pattern, and you could definitely see why. It's a very easy pattern, very simple design, and yet it's still very interesting with that mixed rib pattern. And I would highly recommend both the pattern and the yarn that I used for it. I did mention in a later video on my channel that I think I wouldn't necessarily knit with Sandnes Garn Sunday again for a tight fitting garment, because I think if I were to do that, I would rather pick knitting for olive merino because it's softer. But definitely love that yarn for jumper, for example. Now, one of the plans I was really looking forward to for the spring-summer 2024 knitting plans was the mini mock neck tank by Jessie Made Design. And I think this is the only plan I actually followed to the letter. I said I would knit it in the Fiber Fox Merino Yak sock yarn, which I picked up from East Anglia Yarn Festival, and that's exactly what I did. This is the mini mock neck tan with it. It's super, super nice. I mean, when I was planning to knit this tank, I wanted to knit it because I thought it would be a great staple in my wardrobe as well, and that it really is. I think I actually didn't get to wear as much again. And I think I'm starting to learn that knitted camis are not necessarily my thing. I think when the weather is that warm, I'd rather just not have anything with wool in it, against my skin. Even if it's something with merino, I think I just can't tolerate it too well in warm weather. And I think I'll talk about like summer plans and my reflections on it in general a bit later, but this is one of those knits where I'm really happy with it, just like the mixed rib cami. It's just not something that I've worn as much as I thought I would. But I would definitely want to knit the mini mock neck tank again. I think I would want to knit it in a pure merino base and then have it as like a base layer on top of it being also something I can wear in spring, maybe as layered with a cardigan or something. But I think I'm gonna start steering away from knitting tank tops or camisoles for the summer as a garment that I would purely wear for the very warm weather. Now, I also mentioned that I wanted to knit My Little Secret crop top by Jessie Made Design. That just didn't happen, honestly. Like, I just haven't got around to knitting any of these things. And another thing that I wanted to do over the summer was finishing my Cumulus tee by Petite Knit. Now, that I got some really good progress on, and I'm basically at a point where I've bound off the body. So the body is done, which is the hardest part. And now all I have left to do is the sleeves. But somehow I think... it's just something that another thing I procrastinated on because I was doing other things. I was just busy with other things. But it's really close to being done. So when I'm back with my yarn stuff in the new year, I think I'll definitely try to get that finished off so it's ready for spring next year. And then the last thing I mentioned in the spring-summer plans video was the Crescendo camisole by the Knit Pearl Girl. That was something that had been left as unfinished object since last summer. And I decided to frog it. I've actually already started frogging it. I think I've just realized that I don't particularly enjoy that style anymore. And while I really like the Knit Pearl Girl's designs, I think it's just that cami, I think I signed up for the test knit because I was really excited about test knitting, but I don't think I considered it as well as I should have, and I would rather use the yarn, which is Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, for an actual knitted t-shirt. I was browsing a lot of patterns online actually to see if I could knit something with that cotton merino yarn, and something that struck out was the Tolsta tee by the Claire Bear, and I think she has a fingering weight version for it. So I think I would like to do that with the cotton merino, and I think I need to seriously consider doing more stuff with the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, because I think that I would tolerate a lot better in the summer months. And so if I wanted to make something for the warmer weather, I would probably stick with cotton merino moving forward. Now, a few reflections from my spring-summer knitting plans. So from this year, I think the biggest, error of judgment, so to speak, was just kind of overestimating the time I have for knitting this summer, which was arguably a very busy summer because I was busy with my PhD and house move and etc. And I think throughout the summer as I was knitting, the two camis that I did end up knitting, so the mixed rib cami and the mock neck tank, I think I just realized that I don't necessarily enjoy summer knitting as much. As much as they're very lovely pieces, these camisoles, I think I would rather knit jumpers and stick with jumpers, perhaps like lighter ones, lighter weight jumpers that wouldn't, be too annoying to knit over the warmer weathers. But I think I think the time that I spend knitting camisoles that I just end up not wearing as nearly as much as the jumpers I've worn. Instead of spending that time, I think I would rather just get ahead with my garment knitting during the summertime and focus on continuing knitting jumpers during the warmer weather. So I have nice brand new summer jumpers to wear when autumn rolls around. I think that would be a better use of my time, and as wonderful and as pretty and really cute all the summer patterns are and all the knitted versions of different patterns are that I see on Instagram, I think I've just kind of realized that they're not for me. And that's not to say, never say never, right? That's not to say I'm never going to knit a cami. If I see something that I like, I think I would get on it, just like I did with the mixed rib cami. That was completely spontaneous, but I really liked the design and I signed up for the test knit and I got it, so I knitted it. But I think moving forward, probably next spring, summer, kind of warmer weather period, I would just focus on continuing knitting jumpers so that I get to knit the stuff I love most. It really is, when I look at my wardrobe, and specifically the knitted stuff that I have, I'm still quite surprised at how seamlessly my knitted garments blend in with my store-bought stuff. I wear those knitted garments as much, if not more, than store-bought stuff now. And so I think it would be just a much better use of my time to keep knitting jumpers. Even if the weather is warm, I'll just deal with it. And also, in the UK, especially if you're in a well-isolated house, which is not necessarily a given, you can still knit woolly jumpers over the summer. It rarely gets that hot. It's still a level of warmth where I can't necessarily tolerate woolen camisoles against my skin, but it's not too hot to the point where I can't hold yarn, if you see what I mean. So, with the spring-summer 2024 plans, reflections, actual plans rounded up, now let's talk about the stuff that I plan to knit for the next few months. So again, to give you a bit of context, most of my yarn is in storage at the moment, and so I'm limited to just a few projects that I brought with me, and we'll talk about those. So the first project I'm going to talk about are these lovely, lovely socks that I actually finished pretty soon after putting my stuff in storage. These are my Market Town Yarns subscription sock yarn that I knitted up in Handmade by Florence's Petal Drop socks. I love the way the speckle on the yarn is showing up here. And also the pattern was really easy to follow. I'm a big advertiser for Florence's patterns. I've test knitted for her 3 times now, and I've knitted 4 or 5 of her patterns, and just as always, they're really wonderful, knitted up, very cute, and I'm never disappointed by the design. Also, this pattern has been very popular because there's an accompanying free video online by her, basically giving you a tutorial on how to knit a lacy sock like this. The lace pattern, which she has used in a different pattern as well, called the Petal Drops camisole. I think it started with that first, and then the socks came, if I'm not wrong. The lace is very easy, so I think it's a great beginner pattern for someone who either has never knitted socks before, because honestly, it doesn't change much, or has knitted socks, vanilla socks, and is familiar with those but want to venture into something a bit more interesting with a lace pattern. And this pattern is also on the pay as much as you want basis, so You can get it for free, you can get it for 50% off, or you can pay full price depending on what you feel comfortable paying, essentially. Now, I've only worn these once, so I can't really say much about the durability of the yarn yet. The Market Town Yarns sock yarn is made with a higher merino content. It's got 85% merino and then 15% nylon, and the merino is superwash as well. So I guess I'm just a little bit worried about the durability, but I'm hoping that basically I can see signs of teeny tiny felting already at the sole of the foot, and especially in normal friction points like the heel and the toes. But I think it's fine. I mean, when you're knit like wool socks, you can't expect it to do as well as store-bought cotton and nylon socks. Like, those things are definitely going to be much more durable than knitted socks. However, I think felting is not necessarily a bad thing with socks at the stretch points, such as the back of the heel, because it actually reinforces the yarn by having the fibers kind of all stick together, and it means that you're less likely to get a hole. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But the lace, which is I guess the most important bit because that's the bit that you see outside the shoe, is looking absolutely fine. And I just love the color. It's just so cute. This was the April colorway from the yarn subscription. And then moving on to the next project, I suppose, I've got the March colorway here that I'm knitting up in a different sock. So this I actually started, I think in May or something, and it's a project that I brought with me because I thought I've already got one sock done and I should just finish it. And it's easy to bring. It was easy to bring this yarn project with me and in my luggage. So this is a pattern by Yuka, and it's in, I believe, the first volume of 52 Weeks of Socks, and it's called Berries and Bird Tracks. Now you can see I'm knitting this with 9-inch circulars. I actually knitted the first one on magic loop, and I still had to do magic loop for the toe because you can't really do that on 9-inch circulars. But I'm hoping that there's no gauge difference between the two methods. I'm actually wondering if I'm knitting slightly looser on 9-inch circulars compared to the magic loop method. I mean, we'll see. I think on the scale of a sock, it's not going to make much of a difference. And I mean, I don't really see much of a difference looking at it, but I can feel my tension being a bit looser when I'm using 9-inch circulars. So the Berries and Birds Tracks pattern features some lovely cable knitting, and all of these you can do without a cable needle, by the way. There are techniques for doing the different leaning stitches to not need a knitting needle. So that's been very useful. It's been a very portable project. And it's also just nice when you don't need a knit cable needle on the side. It's just one less thing to worry about. The pattern is very easy to follow, and the first sock was done very quickly. It was done on a week where I was ill, so I was just like knitting away. But I forgot to mention that these I also knitted on 9-inch circulars. So I've gotten used to doing the heel flap and gusset on 9-inch circulars, and it's been a bit of an adjustment, but it's definitely doable. And I'm actually quite glad because I feel like using 9-inch circulars makes my sock knitting a lot faster than using magic loop, just because I feel like you're kind of wasting time every time you have to move from the one needle to another when you're doing magic loop, and you don't have any of that with the 9-inch circular. So I'm a converted 9-inch circular, sock knitter now. Now the colorway, as I mentioned, was the March 2024 colorway from the Market Town Yarn subscription, and they are looking so lovely. Everyone asks if it's the striping is on purpose. I don't think it is. It's just like the way the dye came out. But yeah, it gives this lovely stripe effect, but it doesn't interfere with the cabling because it's a light enough color that you can really see the cable first and then the color after, I think. The color variegation after. Now, moving on, another thing I'll be working on is actually 2 times the same pattern, and it's because I've got some friends' birthdays coming up, and both of them want an April cardigan that's knitted in a lighter gauge. So, this is the first one, and it's knitted up in Knitting for Olive Merino held single in the color Licorice. I'm still working on the yoke. Obviously, it being fingering weight means that it's going to take me a lot longer. And I mean, it's already past this person's birthday, but she doesn't mind because I'm not going to see her until the end of November. So hopefully by the end of November, this is done. And I started this 3 weeks ago. And in all fairness, I haven't been working on this solely. That's why I don't get as much progress as I hoped I would. But it's super nice. And it's looking a bit transparent right now with nothing behind it. But basically, if you have it against something, it's completely matte. So it's not as gapey as it looks, the fabric. Now I'm having to convert the April cardigan's gauge to match this one's gauge. So I just did a bit of maths basically, and I mean, it helps that I have a maths degree, but you do some very classic gauge conversion. So the original pattern asks for 21 stitch gauge, and I'm working on with 26 stitch gauge. So using that information, you convert not only your cast on number of stitches, but also for the raglan you need to, because this pattern involves some kind of raglan type kind of English, what they called English tailoring increases for the shoulder construction. And so for that, not only do you need to convert basically the number of stitches in each section of your raglan sectioning, and then you need to increase the number of raglan increases you do throughout the pattern so that you end up with the right amount of stitches at the end of each section. So just to give you an example, say the pattern says to do 10 increases to have 30 stitches by the end of the increases. You need to do more increases so that the 30 stitches at the end of the increases, which you convert to the different gauge, which could be 40, for example. So 30 stitches at the end of the increases in the pattern's gauge converts to 40 stitches in your gauge. Doing 10 raglan increases is therefore not gonna achieve the 40 stitches that you need, so you need to do more increases. And if the row gauge stays proportional in your gauge to the proportion in the pattern's gauge, there's not going to be too many issues in terms of depth either. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense. If anyone needs help with gauge conversion, drop me a message and I can give a much better explanation for this. But yeah, safe to say, it's been pretty easy for me to do this gauge conversion thing. And I actually really enjoy the fabric that it's giving, and this is the revelation that I needed, that Knitting for Olive Merino held single is something that I could definitely work with in the warmer weather as a lighter weight jumper for myself. Maybe I should do that next summer or next spring. Now, another really exciting project that I've been working on, actually as a knit along with a friend from Knit Night, is the porcelain sweater. Now this is the back section. This is probably the highlight of this season's knitting projects, and it's looking so lovely already. So this is what I'm calling my porcelain 2.0, whereas for my friend, it's actually her third porcelain sweater that she's knitted up. And I'm knitting it with Sandnes Garn Tin Peergin, which is the recommended yarn in the pattern, held with Filcolana tilia, which is not the recommended mohair in the pattern, but it's one that I really enjoy. And I've already mentioned in past videos how I think, for now at least, I haven't tried too many mohairs, but for now Filcolana tilia is my favorite mohair to date. And it's giving this lovely, lovely plush, fluffy pattern with really good definition for the contrast stitch, which is just the same yarns but in white. The green, I'll give the details of the yarn, color numbers in the screen, but I really wanted this pine green color, and I think it has achieved just that with this color combination. So I'm really looking forward to being done with this jumper. But also the process of knitting this jumper has been lovely, because I call my friend every Sunday evening and we knit together for 2, maybe 3 hours sometimes. And yeah, it's just been a really enjoyable process, knitting the same pattern with someone else. It's also good because we did a few modifications with the pattern, and so because this is her third time doing this, she was able to give me some tips on how to do these mods, and so I'm learning as I go as well. Now this rounds up all the knitting I brought with me actually. So apart from these 3 projects that I mentioned, I also already finished the PhD vest, my second sample of it, using the Marketown Yarns Squishy Sock DK. So actually this is a good time to promote my pattern, which has been released since 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago now actually. I've really loved seeing the projects that people have been knitting already, and all the love that the pattern has already received in its very short amount of time since its release. So thank you so much for that, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, the pattern's now, if you wanted to check it out. It's a perfect transitional piece, and it doesn't take too much time because it's knitted in like a heavy DK weight essentially. So apart from those projects and the other cardigan that I'll be knitting when I'm done with this one for my other friend, that's pretty much it for the knitting plans for the next 3 months. And I think having this focused approach, where I had to limit a lot of the stuff I could bring with me after the move, is good, because it means that I'll definitely get these things done, right? By the time we get to December, I'll definitely have a porcelain sweater, which will be this season's Christmas sweater, and I will definitely be done with the 2 cardigans for my friends, and I'll have a second pair of Marketown Yarns socks. So I guess I'll do another one of these probably in January when I'm back and talk about how all these plans went. But also when I'm back with my knitting stuff, I'll probably want to do another video talking about the plans for the rest of winter, because I have a lot of yarn at home. A lot of yarn in my storage box, and I have lots of plans for them and not enough time, but I'll try to squeeze in as much as I can in the remainder of winter when I'm back with my yarn in January. I'm hoping to be back with more regular podcast episodes, but I'm not sure how interesting it will be because I'm limited to these projects and I've already mentioned them. But I'll try to make sure I get back to doing my knitting podcasts soon enough. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.